everyone. Shall we get started with roll call?
Certainly. Greg Patton. Essie Snell.
Here.
Jonathan Koffler.
Here.
Tatiana Duknova. Mike Foster.
Here.
Steve Sane.
Here.
Becky Ho. James Zarsky. Jim?
Sorry.
Got it.
Yes, here. Sorry.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda around a potential vision statement, which I'll describe a little bit more later, but it came at the request of Trustee-elect Howard as sort of a bigger picture way to frame up the specific goals that we want to bring before the board in January. So that would be just at the bottom of section 6.
Okay. I'll second that.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any other agenda adjustments anyone wants to propose?
I see. Just quick clarification. It's a new vision statement for the Sustainability Committee or a new vision statement for the town?
This would be a sustainability or a vision statement that the town would officially sort of endorse in terms of kind of positioning the town as being supportive of sustainability broadly.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think that's the agenda approved. Any public comment? I don't know who's around, if anyone.
It does look like we have quite a few attendees on. I'm assuming that most of them are here for the Girl Scout presentation. Let me check the chat.
I do see one person with their hand raised.
Yes, so I can respond back to the chat. Austin, did you want to say something via chat or in front of the group? If you can respond in the chat, please. In group, please. Okay, so let me allow Austin to speak. Austin, you are on.
Okay, hello. Can people
Hello.
see or just hear me?
Just hear you.
Just hear me. Okay, that's fine. My name is Austin Todd, and I live at the summit at Rock Creek. And so I want to bring up again, I've done this a couple times before, but the town creating an option for year-round composting, and specifically what would help me the most would be composting for kitchen waste, drop-off composting for kitchen waste down at where the yard waste goes as well. As I've mentioned, I've brought this up a few times before, most recently November 14th of a meeting last year in 2019. If you do a quick search in the archives of agendas and minutes and stuff under composting, it'll be one of 2 items that pops up and give you a quick overview of kind of the information I shared last time. Specifically, quick summary would be, or part of the summary would be like, we fall behind both Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Nederland, and of course Boulder in providing some year-round composting options for citizens. So there's that problem of no year-round composting for citizens. Also, in my case specifically, I live in a townhome, and the composting we get for the 6 months a year is really kind of intended or designed for people doing yard waste composting, which obviously I don't have. And you know, what averages out to around $20 a month for composting doesn't work very well for me, especially when I produce maybe every few weeks like a 5-gallon bucket of composting. And so my request is, like, if we could somehow get behind a service that would just allow kitchen wastes, kitchen scrap drop off of composting at the year round at the yard waste site that we already have. And that's it.
Well, thank you so much, Austin. I know that we've gotten a lot of feedback about a desire for composting options, particularly for food waste rather than just yard waste. But I do like the idea as well of having something available at the yard waste site in particular. So that's something we'll continue to explore, and hopefully sometime not too distant future, we'll be able to change our waste contract a little bit more to be more inclusive so that we can get closer to some of the other communities nearby. But I really appreciate your feedback.
Okay.
And Ezzy, if I could as well, Austin, one other thing, when we approved the new waste contract for the town a few months ago, and had conversations with the vendor, who is also the same vendor that operates the Rock Creek contract, which obviously also operates the Summit. They were amenable to downsizing the size of the bin. It doesn't help from a cost perspective because it didn't sound like they'd work with you on cost. But if it's a bin size and just being able to find a place for as large of a bin as they give you, it sounded like they'd be willing to work and give you a smaller bin. Again, it didn't sound like that would reduce your cost at all, but that might be at least a small solution until something better can get implemented by the town.
Is there anything that's preventing us from simply putting a bin that accepts yard waste? I mean, kitchen waste at the current yard waste facility?
It's not built into that contract. That's something that I think would need to be explored further. I don't have any additional information on that right now.
Is there something like I mentioned, as long ago as like 4+ years ago, I brought this up. Is there something, and I went back and looked to see if there was anything that was brought up over the past year since I asked about it a year ago. Is there anything I can do to follow through with seeing if this can start some momentum towards getting it done?
Well, the Summit at Rock Creek, don't they have their own waste provider? Like, they're not part of the Rock Creek HOA waste provider.
No, we're part of the Rock Creek HOA, master HOA.
Well, the Rock Creek HOA holds the contract for waste. So as a committee, we're on the same page with you. But there's several hoops we're working on jumping through. But I think letting your voice be heard at the monthly HOA meetings would be great, because they're the ones that hold that contract. And again,
I think he's asking for something different, right? He's not asking to change the Rock Creek contract. He's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, for us to have something at the yard waste place for household compost, right?
Right, and that's exactly it. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking you. It would seem like the simplest solution to get something going quickly without having to jump through changing a bunch of contracts and stuff.
I mean, I don't think the idea of trying to make your voice heard at the HOA meetings is a bad idea. I'm just sort of saying I think you're asking for something slightly different.
Okay, I misunderstood.
My recommendation would be to to the ACES committee, and I'll say, Austin, what you're doing right now is the right first step and is what you should be doing. My recommendation to the ACES committee is, as we move forward, and as I mentioned, I think at the last ACES meeting, the vendor, the waste vendor, is willing to work with us on options to help reduce our make our diversion rate better. And I think this is one of the ways we could do it. So I would say let's have this conversation with the vendor when we can get them into a meeting, because they did say they'd be willing and love to work with you guys on that problem. So let's bring that up as a solution when we can have that conversation with the vendor.
And
We do have that.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. We do have that as an item on our work plan as well. So I think that'd be great. And I'd love to see more composting options available in the town.
Yeah.
Well, I would 100% use it if there was just like a 5-yard dumpster down where you guys already have 20 or 30-yard dumpsters for the yard waste. And it would save me trekking around the county from charm facilities to even sneaking my composting into Boulder business composting bins and stuff. Trying to do the right thing. So.
Yeah, thanks so much for your comments, and we absolutely will continue to follow up on that. I know it's been slow to say the least, but hopefully we'll see some options in the coming year or two.
Cool. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Yeah,
Thanks so
thank you.
much. Karen, do we have other public comment? I know there are a bunch of Girl Scouts online as well. But is there anything before we get to that?
Yep, so I do not see any other messages or hands raised. So I think, and yeah, it just looks like the Girl Scout leader would like to speak before their agenda item. So we'll make sure that happens.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the new business updates. I'll try not to belabor it too long so we can get to the Girl Scout presentation. The first item we had was to discuss donating the remainder of our budget to charity. And Karen, do you have updates on whether that's even something we could do?
Right. I did run that question to my director, and my director took it to the finance department. And ultimately, those funds are taxpayer funds within the general fund, and those are distributed to each advisory group to complete programmatic goals within the town for the committee. So unfortunately, donating those funds outside of the town won't work.
Okay, well, thanks for checking.
Yes.
I want to share a quick update on a conversation with Partners for a Clean Environment, which is PACE, which is a Boulder County program, and Steve and I were able to join. They've traditionally been sort of the main implementers for the Superior Green Business Program, and we've been doing that in the past. Essentially, they provide a bunch of free resources to particularly businesses in Boulder County to do energy audits, provide information on rebates, and do proactive outreach on a wide range of different topics. And they're actually expanding pretty much right now beyond just efficiency, which has been their traditional purview, all the way through to electrification and zero waste, which is really exciting. And so Mike in particular, I want to bring it up and let you know that they would be more than happy to work with the Partners in Energy program as well and be sort of our outreach arm and take a lot of that burden off of the ACES committee, which would be fantastic.
That's awesome.
So I'll follow up with you and we can get them connected with Excel. It sounds like they've worked with Partners in Energy before, but then there have been some changes in the PI program. And so they just need to reconnect to get those details. So I'm really excited about that. And I think there's a lot of opportunities both to continue the green business program, but also to expand it, given some of the new areas they're working in, and also tie it into the Excel energy action plan that Mike's been working on, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Any quick questions on that? Or Steve, if you have any additional comments of things I missed?
No, I agree. It'd be really cool to get them re-engaged, especially with their new directions. But Might be some growing pains there a little bit, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very small group, so I think they're doing some amazing work, but it's definitely going to be tight, I think, for them. But
Yeah,
definitely appreciate their help. The other update we want to provide was that at the suggestion of Trustee-elect Henshin, I had a chat with the head of the Colorado Communities for Climate Action, or CC4CA, which is the clunky acronym. But they're a really cool group, and essentially they work with different communities around Colorado to help push for legislative or legislation around sort of climate action and sustainability. And so if we're interested in potentially providing a recommendation that the town become a member of CC4CA, there's an annual fee. I'm blanking right now on what exactly that would be for Superior. It's not a huge amount. It's on the order of a couple $1,000s to become a member. But essentially what that would provide is an opportunity for Superior to have a little bit more of a direct influence on some of the legislation going on in Colorado as a whole at the state level. And for me, I think one of the really interesting things that I thought about was a couple of years back when we had the company that went to frack under Rocky Flats. I remember the town had a really difficult time sort of connecting in a way to, impact legislation. And there were sort of few options that they had with regards to sort of pushing back against that initiative. And so I think something like this could actually provide sort of an avenue for the town to respond to those types of things or others in the future and really help push for climate action. So if there's interest, I'd be happy to have Jacob, who's the head of that organization, come and just talk a little bit to the group, and we can see if it's something we want to create a formal recommendation around.
This is Mike. I would very much appreciate that opportunity to see where we can, where our work plan and other activities that we've got sort of planned out for 2021, how we can get them plugged in, or how they can help us become an advocate or be a resource for us to leverage so we can get the word out or get our message out or implement the work that we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks.
And as just for a little bit more background on this, I actually brought up this exact group and our possibility of joining back when I was elected 2 years ago. I had a conversation with the town manager about it. And at that point in time, there were resource constraints just from staffing time to be able to participate in any type of meaningful manner, which is why the town hadn't joined already. But with a sustainability analyst coming online, I think this is absolutely a great time to have that conversation again. So definitely good timing with bringing this back up.
Excellent. Well, and to that point too, they did mention in my conversations that some communities have actually selected someone from their volunteer advisory committees to represent the community at the CC4CA meetings, which are sort of at minimum about once every quarter for a couple hours at a time. So it's not a huge time commitment. And so that's another, I think it's fantastic now that we have a staff member. I think that they'd be the ideal person, but there are also other opportunities as well. And if we have, for example, a volunteer on ACES who is really excited about a particular topic or piece of legislation, we could have them go to some of those meetings along with the, kind of above and beyond what our staff member would be doing for the town. So I think it sounds like a very cool opportunity from what I heard. So, all right, well, I'll go ahead and reach out and see if we can get them on the next agenda so we can hear a little bit more about them and consider making a formal recommendation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So with that, let's get to the Girl Scout presentation.
Okay, so I believe it's Jamie Buck who would like to speak first. So Jamie, you're on.
Jamie, looks like you're still muted.
There we go. Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Yes.
We gotcha.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Buck, leader of Superior Junior Girl Scout Troop 76907. The determined 5th grade girls of Troop 76907 have not let the COVID-19 pandemic stop them from working to make the world a better place. Although they definitely would prefer to meet in person, they've been holding weekly virtual meetings since mid-April. They've dedicated 4 meetings to choosing their Bronze Award project, which is working towards the establishment of a pollinator garden in Superior. Since choosing this opportunity to make a sustainable difference on a problem that's important to them, the girls have dedicated 5 more meetings and many hours individually to learning about pollinators and creating the video requests that they're presenting to you tonight. As Girl Scouts, we realize that we can make a bigger impact when we include other interested parties and work as a team. We've reached out to community members, first to help us formulate our request, and now hoping to partner with the town of Superior to create and maintain pollinator gardens. For this project, Troop 76907 consulted with wildlife expert Yanni Brandt. Yanni has been fascinated by animals from his earliest days. He obtained his PhD in biology at Indiana University in the area of animal behavior, ecology, and evolution. He's conducted research and taught at universities in the United States and Canada, including courses in animal behavior, zoology, neuroethology, and a variety of introductory topics in biology. His research on communication, locomotion, and scaling in animals has been published in leading peer-reviewed professional journals and featured in textbooks on animal behavior. His interests also include nature and wildlife photography. Troop 76907 also consulted with pollinator expert Liana Street, a board member of and volunteer for the People and Pollinators Action Network and a former Girl Scout leader. The troop also consulted with Terry Clark, a Girl Scout assistant, mom, and community advocate to learn about the town of Superior's governing process and seek approval for pollinator gardens in Superior's parks and open space. The troop collaborated and each girl volunteered for 1 or more parts in the video production. Scriptwriter, video editor, researchers, request writers, costume designers, and role players alike all teamed together for the project. Girls leveraged their strengths and also supported their troop members who pushed themselves past their comfort zones to contribute and grow. The girls designed costumes to resemble native pollinators, and each girl crafted her own costume. When possible, and with respect to sustainability, the girls exchanged their personal items to be used for costumes. When needed, the troop purchased supplies for costumes with money earned from their Girl Scout cookie sales. Yay for Thin Mints and Samoas. Thank you for watching Junior Girl Scout Troop 76907's pollinator video. Thank you for reading their pollinator request, and thank you for approving pollinator gardens in the wildlife corridor. We hope that this is just the beginning of planting pollinator gardens in many of Town of the Superior's parks and open spaces. Thank you.
Perfect. I will go ahead and play the video. If everyone can make sure that you're on mute, we will go ahead and get started.
Hello, my name is Pollinator and, oh, hello Butterfly.
Hello Polly, I have some really exciting news. A little hummingbird told me the town of Superior is considering planting a garden just for native pollinators, like the native bees and me!
That is really exciting. Let's go tell Bumblebee.
Hello, Miss Butterfly. What brings you to my patch of flowers this fine day? Oh, and Pollinator, too. May I interest you in a cup of milkweed nectar?
We would love some.
We have great news.
The town of Superior is thinking about planting a pollinator garden.
That is not just great news, it is stupendous news. It is about time the humans did something nice for us, because 35% of the world's food crops are pollinated by pollinators. The pollinator garden is such great news, I'll come with you to help spread the word. Hi, Leafcutter Bee. Hey, Butterfly, Bumblebee, and Pollinator, where are you guys going? We came to tell you that the town of Superior is considering planting a pollinator garden. That's so cool. Will there be holes in wood for me where I can live?
Sure, Leafy. I'll ask the Advisory Committee for Environmental Sustainability and the Town Board of Trustees. After all, I am a Superior Girl Scout.
Then I'm in. Oh yes, Polly. Can you have them add holes in the ground too? Like the size of a grapefruit? for me to nest in? Because unlike most native bees, us bumblebees live in colonies instead of by ourselves.
Oh yeah, I would like there to be milkweed plants too, because milkweed is the only plant my future babies will eat.
Sure.
Did I hear you correctly? The town of Superior is planting a pollinating garden?
Yup.
Wow, that's great because us pollinators' homes and food sources are being threatened, and we could really use some support. I also heard that you guys were requesting some different things. If so, I would like there to be some dead wood for me to nest in.
Whoa, so many requests. I'm gonna have to write them all down.
Okay, we're coming with you.
Hi ho, hi ho.
Oh, hi! Why does everyone look so excited?
Hi, Andrina. We're excited because there might be a new pollinator.
Oh, now I see why you're so excited. That's great news. Superior was mining town. I'm sure they would love miner bees. Will there be bare soil for me to dig my nest? Why not? I'm definitely in. Because I'm losing my home due to earth moving. Have you told Mason Bee yet?
No, we were going to tell her after we told you.
You could come with us if you want, Andrina. Sure!
Hey guys, what you up to?
We're spreading the news.
What news?
The buzz is that the town of Superior might be planting a pollinator garden.
What's a pollinator garden exactly?
It's a really beautiful place with plants that go spring to fall that are grown without pesticides. It's a place with everything pollinators could possibly want, like places to live, food, and more. And maybe once Superior plants one, other places will too. Yeah!
That sounds amazing! Will there be mud for partitioning my nest into little rooms?
Okay. I hope there will be drip irrigation to water me too, because development has recluded the amount of water where I live. Thank you very much for pollinating me. You flowers can talk? Yep.
That's weird.
Wait, guys, is that a camera? We're gonna be famous! Yay! Nothing is greater than a garden for pollinators. We're gonna be famous! I'm Pollinator.
And I am Butterfly. We think the town of Superior should plant a pollinator garden because plants take carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen for us to breathe.
I'm a bumblebee.
Carpenter bee. Some pollinators eat garden pests, so if the town of Superior plants a pollinator garden, there will be less pests in the garden.
And I'm a leafcutter bee. I am a flower. And did you know that gardening makes you happy? And I'm a miner bee, but you can call me Andrina.
I am a mason bee. Did you know that plants suck out unhealthy pollution from the air and ground? Planting a pollinator garden would make Superior a less polluted place. Hooray!
Thank you so much.
The end.
Perfect. That was
Great.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
That's great.
Very clever.
Fantastic.
Very well done. It was the bee's knees.
So, and they did have a request form. I attached it to the agenda and sent it out to anyone. Jamie, did you have any comments to make about that? the attached?
If you'd like, I don't know how much you want me to go into it. I think the biggest things that might be relevant after seeing the video is we talked about what we would need from the town and what the Girl Scouts might be able to do to help out. So we were hoping the town could provide space, watering, preferably drip irrigation, remove the old vegetation, prepare the soil, plant and maintain a variety of native plants, weeding, but avoid using a weed barrier cloth, and keeping humans and dogs out of that area. And then Girl Scouts could recommend features for the garden and recommend plants. The girls would love to plant, but it might be easier to have that be primarily a town project. But if it makes sense to have us start seeds and then transplant them to outside, the girls would love to be involved there. They'd also be interested in designing a sign or a printable guide that could tell visitors more information about pollinators and the garden. Also, the girls might want to encourage neighbors and others in the area to plant their own little miniature pollinator gardens or pollinator patches in their own yards. And we might also be interested in creating either untreated wood with holes drilled in it or like more official bee barns for the bees that live in holes in wood to live in the town's pollinator gardens. Is that a good level of detail?
This looks great. Thanks so much for putting this together. And I guess, Ken, as a board member, do you know what the current status is for the pollinator project, or what the best next steps are to make sure that we get this incorporated into the plans?
So when ACES made the recommendation, there was talk about making sure that we had neighborhood feedback and buy-in and whatnot, which is what led to the conversation and came about of the Girl Scouts becoming part of this project. And by the way, that was a fantastic video. Thank you guys for pulling that together. That was great. But I would say right now, probably the next best step would be to share this with the consultant who had provided the quote to us and their proposal, and see what we can do to integrate what he proposed and what the Girl Scouts have brought forward tonight. That way we can make it a community project and kind of a joint effort to figure out the best way to do that. That way we can accomplish some of the original goals that you guys set out to achieve, and also incorporate what the Girl Scouts are looking for. And once that's been shared with the consultant, if they could come back and walk us through how that could possibly happen, and any price adjustments and anything else they would need to do with their quote, I think that would be the next best step. And maybe we could get that for the next meeting, and then you guys could then make a recommendation to the board, and that would include, assuming they provided an actual quote, that would give us the groundwork for what to expect, how the job would get done, and the final price. So that's at least the steps that I would take at this point.
That sounds great. I'm happy to reach out and share this with Durroot, and then hopefully we can get some information prior to the next meeting.
And this is Mike. Jamie, I just had a quick question for you. Has your Girl Scout troop identified a area of land or two that you would be most interested in? If you had that in mind, we would be happy to share that with our consultant Durroot to see if there's something that is workable. I was unsure if you had an ideal location from your Girl Scout troop perspective.
Yeah. Several of us have walked the wildlife corridor between Waterford and the new downtown Superior, and then also East Carval. And then we also looked at it on Google Maps. It seems like there's an area, a little bit east of, I'm not sure how to describe it. Terry, are you on and are able to help us out? So on Carval, the houses are closer together. I think we were picking a spot there where it seemed like there would be a good area, but I don't have a specific way to describe it. Terry Clark is on, I believe, and she might have a more specific recommendation or a better way to describe it.
Thank you for sharing that. I apologize. I hadn't scrolled down far enough in your proposal to actually lay out the space. So my apologies.
That's okay.
But isn't that the space we were talking about, Essie?
I believe so. I want to confirm, but I think that's the same space we were talking about.
Yeah, this is Tract H as well. So other name for it is Tract H.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
and Tract H is what the consultant provided their proposal for.
And
I think
Terry, I did unmute Terry if she would like to speak too.
Oh, great. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
Hi, thank you. And thank you so much for your support of our Girl Scouts, our community Girl Scouts. The location that we were thinking of for the first pollinator garden is somewhere on the eastern side of the wildlife corridor. And if you scroll down to the rest of it, I think Jamie presented it too, there are other parks because, you know, our native bees travel maybe 400 yards. So they need places that are closer together. So putting one on the eastern side of the wildlife corridor is really only the beginning. We're also recommending that we put one in Riverbend Park, Community Park, Grasso Park, Wildflower Park. I mean, come on, the name begs for pollinator gardens. And also Circle Park, Founders Park, Purple Park, and Parks 1 and 2 of downtown Superior. So our thoughts are that the eastern side of the wildlife corridor is a great place to start. However, if you all or the Board of Trustees feels that there are other more appropriate locations, the Girl Scouts have also done their research to recommend a few other parks for it as well. And it only makes sense if we do them all over time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Karen and Ezzy, when you guys do go back to Dura-Root with this recommendation, if the consultant does focus more on the east side, I think the initial proposal more or less spanned most of Tract H. If there's focus on the east side, I think Karen, especially you, if you could make sure that the consultant gets whatever plotting is being reserved for the playground that Tola's putting in, just to make sure that they have the appropriate spacing to plan with. Thank you.
How critical is the watering with the pollinator gardens? 'Cause I would think kind of the goal with Dura-Root and the Xeric, of course, Xeric is, as you know, is low or no water. And then I feel like we're on the same path, trying to accomplish the same thing with Dura-Root and what the Girl Scouts proposed. I was just curious if the watering is along the lines of very limited to no, like with Xeric, like Dura-Root told us.
Jim, this is Mike. You do need some watering initially so that the plants can take root and take hold. Typically after the first year, you don't need to water.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they will have an irrigation system put in that's probably drip. And then the hope will be that after it gets established, we can turn that off. And if we're using native plants and things like that, it should be pretty easy to maintain. But we'll have that there, you know, and for example, if there's a big drought or something, we can always reuse that system again.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is the drip will be, you know, actually use less water, right, than a traditional irrigation system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, cool. This is great. And I'm excited to bring this up to the contractor, and I'll copy Karen, both you and Ken on that as well. But any other comments or thoughts on this? Again, I really appreciate the video. I think this is fantastic, and I really appreciate you all putting this together.
Thank you very much for hosting us.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really awesome. Everybody did a great job.
Mm-hmm. All right, so not the less exciting part. We have a work plan to review, and I know I've sent it around, and Mike put in a bunch of comments, and I addressed a lot of them, but there's a couple that I think would be good to discuss with the group. but then also any additional kind of thoughts that people want to bring up, and hopefully we can ideally vote on it tonight to finalize it. It's sort of our last official chance.
I see. Before we get to the work plan, what did you want to cover the Excel energy action plan first?
I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right.
That's
I missed out on the agenda. So yep, go for it.
I don't have a really cool video like the Girl Scout troop did. So
that's going to be hard to top.
That is going to be very hard to top. A little bit more boring talking about energy action plans than talking about pollinators. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody that provided feedback and comments on the draft plan that I sent out right before Thanksgiving. Excel Energy is currently reviewing all of the feedback that we've received. The goal at this point in time is to put this out for public review starting early next week. Karen's put me in contact with the town's communication folks, and so we're working on a platform so this can be shared with the town, and the town can provide feedback on things they like, things they'd like to see more of or less of, in general direction. That feedback will likely run through just after Christmas, so a couple of weeks. I'll then work with Excel to incorporate whatever feedback we hear from the community. Then I'd like to present that feedback at the ACES meeting in January, with the ultimate goal of getting this in front of the board to be timed with our work plan so that we can get a formal approval from the town board sometime in probably late January at this point. Comments or questions?
I think that sounds like a great plan. And again, I really appreciate all the work that you put into this. So I'm excited to see it move forward and us be able to act on it. So
yeah, it's very exciting. Thanks, Essie. Appreciate it. I just want to thank Karen, who's been helping me behind the scenes to get really interesting, pretty photos of the town of Superior, and helping to connect me with other folks in the town so we can get this out for public review.
Are there any other comments? I can't see everyone, so. Okay. Well, thanks again, and we'll look forward to continuing that in the new year. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the public comment as well from the general populace in Superior. So. Okay, so now I'll jump to what I thought was the next agenda item. Sorry again for that. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick, and I will bring up the work plan. All right, so essentially what I've done is when I was approaching this, I kind of reformatted per our previous discussion to move from sort of a temporal, like time-based, this is what we'll do in Q1, Q2, Q3, sort of approach to more aligned around our goals that we've been talking about with regards to energy, waste, water, air quality, and climate change. And then there were a number of items that kind of crossed across multiple goals. And so I put those into a section at the end of cross-cutting initiatives. And then anything sort of new or significantly changed from previous years, I put in red. So again, a handful of people have already provided some really great feedback, and we've got some good changes here. But I want to run through it as well, kind of line by line, hopefully not too long, but get everyone's thoughts and make sure that this is something that seems plausibly realistic, even if it's a big list. And then also that we're covering everything that we want to cover. And I guess the first thing is I want to talk about Mike's comment, which you can probably see over here, which is that this is a lot of items and whether we should try to streamline the work plan. And so we can keep that in mind. If we want to go through everything first, then that might be good, so you can see just how many items there are. So I'll just start going down, and anyone feel free to speak up and interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll try to get through this reasonably quickly so we can have more time for discussion. So first, under climate and energy conservation, are exploring ways to move the town to 100% zero carbon energy. Again, finalizing and implementing the town's energy action plan that Mike just talked about, and looking for ways to keep partnering with Excel. Explore potentially becoming more of a demonstration city for decarbonization or electrification efforts, or offering community solar. You know, this is something that's come up from a couple different folks that I think would be really exciting. And again, for any item that's like explore or look into, that doesn't necessarily have to be, it can be as big or as small as people want to, and as it makes sense when we bring it up next year. So it's not like every one of these that says explore has to be a massive multi-hour thing. Some of them can be reasonably short. Promoting education on and recommend infrastructure improvements around bikes, electric vehicles, and other alternative transportation. And then also promoting residential and commercial energy audits and rebates. And Mike pointed out that these are part of the energy action plan. My own personal preference would be to leave those in just so that the town board is aware that we're highlighting those in addition to sort of the energy action plan, which hopefully they'll also read and be aware of too. But I think it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of redundancy just to make sure everyone's aware of what we're doing. And then considering a recommendation that the board commission a broad study of local climate impacts, possibly in coordination with Boulder County, to identify and support opportunities for resilience initiatives. And that also ties in with another recommendation down below to look at potential water use impacts of climate change. So let me stop there real quick for that section. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts or concerns about any of those particular items?
I feel like we're mixing long-term and short-term goals in this area. Like, obviously, we're not going to make the town 100% zero carbon energy by the end of 2021, right? Going. Whereas number two, finalizing and implementing the town's energy action plan, bridging opportunities with Excel, that's probably something that's going to happen in the next year. And I don't know if we want to kind of break kind of the ongoing long-term stuff out from more of the immediate goals, kind of ingrained, you know, kind of in the theme of Mike's big picture comment. I don't know. That's kind of my knee-jerk reaction as you went down the list. But I don't know. I'll open it up to others to comment.
Hey, Essie. To kind of address Mike's comment there about, you know, we're an all volunteer. You think it makes sense to, you know, we have several different categories here, and we have a good amount of people on the board with different backgrounds and experiences to kind of do like subcommittees for each one of these. Like each one of us tackle, you know, once we present to the board and it goes through, kind of just, you know, each person gets assigned one of the categories and move forward to take action on them.
I think that's a great idea. And that's actually something I was going to bring up as a potential idea for how we kind of structure things next year. Because I think we've been gradually expanding the scope of our work over the past couple of years, which is fantastic. But I do think that having some smaller kind of subcommittees, to your point, would be really helpful in making sure that we can continue to address each of these items. So I'm all for that, unless anyone else feels strongly against that.
I think that's a fantastic idea. Many hands make light work.
And we've already started to do that a little bit with regards to individual initiatives, like Steve's kind of taking the lead on the PACE projects and the Green Business Program. You know, Mike's taking the lead on the Partners in Energy initiative. And so I think, you know, finding ways that within people's, you know, respecting people's time commitments, but being able to break those out to make sure that we can get to all the different items that we want to explore and be able to address those sufficiently, I think it'd be fantastic. So I'd be fully supportive of that.
Yeah, I like Jim's idea of, you know, how are there ways to kind of chunk this out into short, medium, and long term. And I realize that the town's going to be hiring a sustainability analyst sometime in Q1 of 2021. And I would imagine that just through sheer excitement, there's going to be a lot of activity and work put onto that individual's plate from day one. And so I think if we can go in with a more prioritized list, so it doesn't feel like either ACES or whoever the sustainability analyst is going to be having to deal with a tidal wave of work out the gate, that, you know, we've done some work to say, all right, here are some priorities that we want to get done in the next 1, 3, 5 years, and we can kind of chunk it out that way.
I think one other thing that I had been planning on putting together as well was sort of a planning calendar, so we could figure out when we want to address different issues and have different items brought for discussion, as opposed to just leaving it sort of free form.
Love it.
And so we could coordinate that with some groups, some subcommittee groups, and then also with the town staff member once we figure out kind of what their main focus is going to be. Does that sound reasonable to leave the work plan a little bit more kind of open-ended and then have a more specific kind of focused work plan that's calendar-based or time-based?
I like that. I think that's a reasonable compromise. We can say we're going to tackle these two things in Q1 and these two things in Q2, or however we decide to chunk that out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Because yeah, some of this is going to take a lot longer time horizon to even explore, just given some of the complexities, and some of these things we can start doing tomorrow if we so choose.
Mm-hmm. And there are a number of items on here that have been kind of carryovers from previous years about like promoting different programs, which largely is just sort of touching base with the town to make sure that those are going to be items in the e-newsletter, or maybe reaching out to what's it called? The group that works with all businesses.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Lack of sleep is an amazing thing. But working with a chamber. And so a lot of those items can be very short and just, not more than 5-10 minutes. And so even though, I think they're worth including here so that we have a record of those and make sure that those don't fall off the radar. But many of these items are going to be pretty short, along with the handful that will be much more in depth. Okay, so let's jump down to waste management, unless anyone else has any comments. Again, feel free to jump in anytime. A long-standing one that we've had is evaluating and recommending improvements to and promoting the town's trash recycling organics program. That's sort of an ongoing item. And then two specific ones are discussing waste management best practices with the current contractor. As Ken brought up earlier, they're open to talking with us, so I think that's a really good opportunity. And then looking at potentially creating and enforcing stronger guidelines around construction waste management, particularly with all the downtown related projects going on in the next couple of years. Again, looking at commercial recycling opportunities, which is sort of an ongoing thing, just to make sure we're staying on top of that and looking at for new opportunities there. Looking for ways to promote recycling education and the household hazardous waste facility. Again, supporting the Girl Scouts fall leaf collection program, and let's see, and that's also the air waste facility. I wonder if that's duplicate. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this because I think it's pretty duplicative of the earlier one. Oh, sorry, this is the air waste, not, all right, never mind. Engaging the community to explore a ban on single-use plastics, and now we have a platform for the town of Superior to provide outreach. So I think that would be a fairly low lift, but it'd be really interesting to get people's thoughts on that. I know, when I first started on ACES about 6 years ago, there was some pushback on banning more common in a lot of different communities. So I'd love to get kind of the community's thoughts on that. Having a America Recycles Day, assuming the pandemic's wrapped up in time. Talking with EcoCycle about their needs and opportunities. And then for a while, we were doing some recycling education programs in schools. And I don't know exactly what that looked like. I was never heavily involved with that, but that could be something that might be worth reaching out to local schools about that.
And SC, would that be an opportunity to engage our existing waste hauler, and we can fold that into that conversation to see if there's something that they would be willing to do? And I think there's another comment that I made about the event composting, and this is all great PR for them if they're out at composting or zero wasting community events when we get back to having those, and providing zero waste services for schools. Again, there's an opportunity for them to be in the classroom and talk about recycling, and so we start the messaging from and the behavior early on. So I think some of this we can put onto the hauler and see if there'd be amenable to working with us.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. And also we've talked to EcoCycle in the past and they've expressed interest in providing some educational materials, both to residents, but then also looking at different ways of kind of providing presentations and other types of information that way. So I think there's other ways to leverage both the hauler and EcoCycle.
Okay.
So yeah, I think for the most part, all the waste management stuff that's detailed here isn't actually a super heavy lift. I think there are ways of partnering with their existing kind of organizations, and then just looking at ways of making sure that we're providing the education that we have available to us through the e-newsletter and Chamber of Commerce and other venues. Any questions or concerns about waste management?
I was just going to say, you're right. A lot of these are fairly small, but if you wanted to sort of consolidate the list, I mean, 5, 11, and 12 are really connected, right? We could probably craft a single item around both that education and well, I don't. The schools is maybe a little bit different, but that seemed a little bit repetitive there, or I don't know. How detailed. These are a lot more bite-sized pieces than, for example, that were up in the previous section. I don't know. Maybe there's some opportunities there to combine some of these to at least make the list not look so daunting.
Agreed. Would everyone be in favor of just changing number 5 to recycling education for residences, businesses, and schools?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what great. I thought was like the easiest one, right?
Yeah. And then cool. And then Jim, did you have something to say as well?
Well, yeah, I guess we feel like composting and providing composting town-wide is emphasized enough here. I mean, I know it's covered there in like organics program and things like that, but do you think we need to state that more clearly, or do you think it's just covered and we're okay?
We could potentially have an item in there about something like per community feedback, investigate food waste composting options. And I also wonder, 1 and 2 are a little bit redundant because hopefully, this is more to the town, to the board, and then this is more with the contractor, but they're both similar. So what if we just change number 1 to focus entirely on especially food waste organics?
Yeah, because that seems to be, in my mind, based on the community feedback and the pricing that we got in the last bid, that seems to be kind of the next frontier for Superior to really leverage. Some, I think, and then the variable pricing for different size containers.
Does that encapsulate it?
Like the gentleman that was talking to us earlier was really thinking about something different, though, like this drop off idea. That's, I mean, obviously there's a contractor in somewhere that has to come and deal with that, but that was a slightly different. Yeah, I mean, I like calling that out because it's sort of hitting it from 2 different places, right? Some place you can go drop stuff off, and otherwise it's with the
drop off. The drop off might be the interim until we get a new, whatever, the 5-year waste contract, and then we can hopefully work with the HOA to negotiate one town-wide contract that includes, weekly recycling, weekly food waste collection, yard waste collection, something like that, so that it's comprehensive and hopefully more price competitive.
Yeah, and that might be a way for us to, really see and understand how much of a demand there actually is, right? I mean, if we find people are actually using a drop-off place, right, that suggests a certain level of interest.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, I think, to the points raised already, this is something that keeps coming up time and time again. There's so much community interest in desire for composting service of some type, whether it's curbside or a drop off. So I think making this our #1 item under waste management is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so for water conservation, we have investigate and advise the board on drought mitigation strategies, including reducing the number of maintained grassy areas, promoting indoor and outdoor residential water audits. This is one that's similar to the one above, but consider a recommendation of the town commission a study on water availability under different climate scenarios to make sure the town will have sufficient supply in the coming decades and inform development.
So I had a question about that one. Where does that fall on ACES versus developers that are proposing, potential mega development in the town where they would likely need to demonstrate that there is enough water capacity to accommodate that development 50 years down the road?
My understanding, and Karen and Ken correct me if I'm wrong, and if so, I'll be happy to delete this immediately. But I don't believe those current proposals and analyses are sort of forward-looking under different climate projection scenarios. They're more based on historical data about water availability and variations over time. And so this is sort of a different, sort of a shift to incorporating more, forward-looking approaches rather than just backward-looking.
Okay.
Yeah, to add some additional context, we actually had a presentation from our water lawyer. We have a water lawyer a month or two ago, and the projections that we have and the plan that we have in place is not built off of climate scenarios, but is instead built off development scenarios and maximizing and understanding what our town peak population is going to be and what our needs would be to service the town at those levels. And based off those forecasts and those models, we are going to be in a very good place. That was actually the prior town boards, many town boards ago, made very prudent decisions in getting in on some projects and reserving our water shares. And right now, even though the Windy Gap firming project is not complete and it is nearing construction, it's just waiting on a final lawsuit to be resolved. Once that's constructed, based off the information our water lawyer gave to us, we will have more than enough water and likely beyond our needs for the future of Superior, based off his metrics. What I can do is I can go back and find that presentation and forward it to you all. It has all that information in it if you guys want to look at it. But I'm not saying you should take this off, but based off those other metrics, it looks like we're in a good place. But again, that wasn't climate based.
And Ken, within that study, does that include, was that only potable water, or does that also include expanded use of recycled water, the purple pipe?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly.
Because that in and of itself is a resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that we were talking about freshwater shares,
okay.
not gray water.
Okay.
But don't hold me to that.
Fair enough.
If we wanted to, especially in the interest of reducing the number of items here, I think there's also a fair amount of overlap between this and the earlier item about like just commissioning a study of local climate impacts. So if we wanted, we could take this one off for now, particularly pending a look at the existing sort of water analyses that Ken mentioned. And
Essie, I might suggest that we put something in the cross-cutting, like some sort of resiliency planning, because I think that's going to encapsulate water resources, energy resources, air resources, so that the town is set up for whatever eventual climate change impacts we're going to be experiencing.
Yeah, and that was sort of my thinking with this particular item. And since we matched up climate and energy, I stuck it here, but I'd be happy to move that to the cross-cutting section and or clarify if that makes sense.
Yeah, I hesitate though to take water. I like that water specifically called out. I mean, that's going to be one of our biggest issues under, under a future climate scenario where, it's getting hotter and drier. So I would sort of hesitate not to have that called out. How it's organized here, I don't know, but I do like that water is specifically called out there. I was going to say, if you do want to cut some things down here, 2, 5, and 6 could easily be made into a single item, right?
Mhm.
They're all about providing education around water conservation and xeriscaping, including indoor and outdoor residential audits and irrigation controller and rebates, right? I mean, I think all of those could just be one nice little bullet.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Mike. I think I cut you off there.
No, that's all right. I absolutely agree that keeping water on here is absolutely important. But if we do want to make, if ACES does want to move forward with an eventual recommendation that the town has some kind of resiliency planning, things like water are going to be folded or should be folded into that. So again, my 2 cents is if we capture that under cross-cutting as a overarching resiliency planning or plan, then I think we can take the plan out of energy, the plan out of water to, again, continue to kind of consolidate and streamline things, but still capture the intent of what you're saying.
Why don't we specifically call out water availability in different future climate scenarios in the earlier item and then move that down to the cross-cutting? So we're still calling out water in particular, but it shortens it. Does that sound good to everyone?
Works for me.
Okay.
And for those of you who didn't see it, I just put a link into the chat that will bring you to the presentation from our water attorney at our last meeting. What it says in the PowerPoint is much more understated than the way he presented and discussed. In the actual PowerPoint, it says that Superior's 15 Windy Gap units will generate sufficient water for all projected growth. He talked in much more favorable terms during the actual presentation, though. I'll drop that link in there as well if you actually want to watch his presentation. I think it was maybe 15 or 20 minutes in length.
Well, thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thanks.
It is curious though, because I think a lot of these models don't look forward, they look on historical values. And so I think no matter what town, whether it's Denver or Superior or Vail, they all say, yeah, we're going to have enough water supply for all of our projected future growth. And yet we got half the amount of precipitation this year than we normally do. So if that's a trend that continues over time, at some point we're going to have half the amount of water in our reservoirs than we anticipated. So it's something that I think we need to take a look at.
I do think Denver's talking about it with the Gross Reservoir. I know that's pretty controversial, but I have heard them say that part of that is to build some resiliency in,
And to add context, so when I talk about the Windy Gap firming project, that is essentially creating a brand new reservoir in a place that a reservoir doesn't exist right now to build that capacity to capture some of that water that's not currently being captured in the water system. So that what's going on with Gross is an expansion. This is going to be a brand new
new one.
Yeah. If you open up that link that I sent to you guys, there's actually a bunch of maps in there and shows exactly where it is and what the size will be and whatnot, and how it fits in between two current geographic areas to create a dam. And essentially it has been held up for years due to litigation, but has all but been resolved, and the final ruling is just waiting, and is, at least the way our lawyer tells it, basically been resolved as well and could come through any day.
Oh, so it's up by Granby, huh?
Yep.
Right, and I just shortened a couple of other items while keeping all the content.
The only other comment I had under water conservation is since Superior does provide water and basically is a water utility, do we want to help them reevaluate maybe the rebates they offer or make suggestions there? I mean, I have them live up on my screen and it seems like they got really all the bases covered, but I don't know if those are constantly reevaluated every year or it's been the same for a while, but I don't know, just a thought I wanted to throw out there.
I think that's a great idea. I'd be happy to add that as an item. Does anyone feel strongly one way or another?
I think it's always a good idea to take a look at those.
One idea that came up, and I'm not sure if we want to do this as a committee or not, but was to investigate whether it'd be possible to create like an online resource or mobile app so that residents could report sprinklers that don't appear to be working properly. And then we could just share that immediately with the town or contractors. Does that seem like something that would be worth adding into our work plan?
There's currently something, right? Like a phone number or something.
So it's called C-Click Fix. And it's on the town's website for residents to use.
Oh, cool.
And so if you see something that in town, you click, put it in, then we get notified and someone is put on it to fix it.
Yeah. So maybe we should just promote that instead of trying to do something new.
That was sort of where I was headed. Yeah.
Especially because I've actually used that app for exactly what you just described and it worked really well.
And I was going to ask, I don't know about anybody else, but does anybody else know how to create an online app to do this and interface with the town IT infrastructure? Or is that something that we want the town staff to write, and then it gets to the town staff have the capacity to do this, just given everything else? So I'd rather promote the C-Click Fix.
Yeah, that sounds like a better approach to me. All right. Air quality, we had 3 items, which was basically investigating strategies to monitor air quality at the town level. Right now, we just have regional information. And so if we want to focus on air quality, it'd be helpful to have more granular data. Exploring opportunities to work with regional partners to improve air quality. So reaching out to some of the neighboring advisory committees probably, and seeing if there are ways to collaborate there. And then looking to provide education to residents around sort of electric lawn equipment and other electrification opportunities to improve air quality.
I see with regional partners to improve air quality, is there something with the Colorado Communities for Climate Action that could tie into this in some way, where we could get either information, some of that more granular data that we are interested in? Is that something that group would have access to or could share with us?
I don't know. So that would be a great thing to bring up in the next meeting. If they're able to come join us, then we can ask them directly. I don't know what type of data sources they have. So
I see. When you're talking about other electrification opportunities, are you also talking about electric vehicles?
Yeah, electric vehicles and also building electrification too, potentially, especially for looking at that as part of our broader climate initiatives.
And I just wanted to make sure that you all saw the comment that Jamie made in the chat.
Can someone read it to me? I don't seem to be able to open the chat at the moment since I'm sharing my screen.
Right.
Second and third grade Girl Scouts have a Wonders of Water journey. Perhaps if you'd like young community members to help spread the word about water conservation, you could reach out to these troops. Third grade was when we made our first video, and it was about saving water. And she provided a YouTube link.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think
that's a great idea.
Yeah. And with some of the other things we were talking about with waste and energy, I mean, the Girl Scouts might be a great way to help us spread the word, get information out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe we can, I don't know if we earn a badge for that.
Yeah, I think leaning more on both the Girl Scouts and the Chamber of Commerce to promote different things, are two opportunities that we haven't really pursued all that much the last few years. So I think those would be really great. Okay, so for cross-cutting, these are where we have probably the most items. We have the recommendation that we talked about earlier with regards to studying local climate impacts, coordinate efforts and priorities with the town sustainability staff member. So that's just kind of a standing item to express that we expect to be working with the staff member on a regular basis. Keeping the board up to date on sustainability goals, looking for grant opportunities for sustainability, coordinating the Superior Green Business Recognition Program in partnership with PACE, considering a recommendation that the board adopt a home rule charter to facilitate future sustainability changes to municipal code. This is something that came up when we originally proposed some changes to the municipal code around electric vehicle infrastructure. And not only were there kind of mixed reactions from the board at that time, but also it came up that we couldn't even make those changes even if we wanted to. And so it might be worth considering recommendation formally to the board to adopt a home rule charter so that we can do more municipal code changes in the future. Developing budget recommendations, and these are just some of the standard types of items that we typically include in our budget recommendations to the board. So if there's anything else that we want to include or not include here, again, this will be sort of a general, we'll develop it in the future. So these items here are just ideas. They're not, don't restrict us in any way from what we can recommend.
I feel like C and E we've kind of covered in some of the section, a couple of the sections above, and staffing. Given that the town is moving forward with a new sustainability analyst sometime in early 2021,
yeah, that's true.
It seems like maybe that's can come off the list. Obviously I think we can continue to advocate that, yes, that position continue to be funded moving into the future, but the fact that the town's made that commitment is a great step.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing I would encourage you guys to add there, just so it doesn't fall off the radar, which I'm sure it wouldn't, but any necessary budgetary actions to implement a long-term sustainability vision or plan. I mean, I suspect over the coming year, there's going to be a lot that comes out of you guys, and trying to figure out how to fund it and what the priorities are will be important. So making sure that doesn't fall off the radar, I think, will be critical to not just make sure that you guys continue to move forward, but to hold us, the town board, accountable in making sure we provide the resources to implement whatever plans you bring forward to us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And then we have provide zero waste services at town events. And Mike, I totally appreciate your comment that maybe we can get our waste hauler to do this. I know that in Boulder, at least, they actually have either volunteers or town staff, I think, that are paid to basically sit near the different bins with trash, recycling, compost, and make sure you put your trash in the right place. And so I think if we can get the waste hauler to do that, that'd be fantastic. But there also may be opportunities to look for different ways of doing it too.
Or Girl Scouts.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah.
One of the less fun options for them to do.
Right.
Before you
and hosting town events. Oh, sorry.
On number 7, do you want to call out sort of the things we talked about earlier, like the pollinator gardens and Ken, what was that budget item that was about sort of rethinking some of the grassy areas? I mean, I don't know if that sort of falls into what you were thinking about in B, but
it could be. I do know. I mean, that's any type of expansion of our Xeriscape initiatives. That's what it's currently budgeted under, and there was 5 years, a 5-year budget plan for the Xeriscape line item. But I think keeping that on your guys' radar makes sense as well. So it could certainly be wrapped up into B, or you guys could call that out specifically as well if you wanted to.
I went ahead and added an item. I don't think it hurts to add items to this, especially since it's sort of just a placeholder. But I like the idea of having an explicit call out for pollinator gardens and sort of, I'm hesitant to use the word xeric because some of the things we've talked about are more just like natural plantings, but calling out those types of things explicitly. Okay, so hosting town events post-pandemic. Oh, sorry. Someone else? Okay. These are all the types of typical events that we normally do when we don't have a global pandemic. So I think we can just keep those.
And Essie, I think the HHW, the household hazardous waste, we've already covered under the waste management.
Yeah, that's true. Is it worth keeping here just because it's an event, or should we just delete it for sake of brevity?
I think we should delete it for the sake of brevity, but that's my opinion.
Well, or should it be here instead of the other place?
That's true. Maybe we should just keep it here, and I'll go ahead and delete it from the other place. I think this would be better, so we can have all of our events in one single place. Okay. So maintain the sustainability scorecard. And that's something that Mike Henshman had been doing for a while. So I think this could be something potentially that the staff member might be interested in doing, depending on what their goals are. Otherwise, it's something that we could maintain. So I think this could be sort of a TBD pending the work that the staff member is going to do. Playing event giveaway items. I'm not really sure if this needs to be a separate item or not, but it probably doesn't hurt to have here just as a reminder. Promoting the Garden in a Box program, liaising with other town committees on shared priorities. Is this something we should have on here? I mean, I think that's definitely something we should do, but I'm not sure if it necessarily needs to be a work item per se.
Isn't that just kind of how we should do business?
Yeah.
I mean, we should be collaborating with the town board and other committees. That just should be how we do things.
The only thing I would say maybe counter to that was, Essie, in our meeting, it was pretty clear that we hadn't been talking to the chamber enough.
That's true.
I don't know if we want like a reminder there that this is sort of something we need to be doing. Other committees, the chamber, who are there other stakeholders besides our residences that we should be engaging with?
Yeah, that's actually one of the key strategies that's outlined within the energy action plan. And so from an energy standpoint, yeah, there's going to be a lot of involvement or a lot of collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce and other business groups to really engage the business community to take action. So I think keeping it here is great, just making you aware that it's kind of built into the DNA of the energy action plan.
Good. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing if at the end of the year we look at and start checking these off to sort of see that maybe they were covered.
Yeah. That sounds good. Looks like Mike added a couple here around creating and promoting community gardens in the town. I think that's great. And then supporting local and minimized, transportation of goods.
But 13 could probably be a part of 9, right? I mean, it's a sustainability scorecard item, right? I mean, and I think maintaining it and sharing it, right, could be all be together.
You can list the Boy Scouts too, under 12. They have a pretty big footprint here in town.
Yeah.
And they do the tree recycling too.
Yeah, that's what is that. The Boy Scouts usually do that, right?
Yeah, that's in the Boy Scouts thing for a while.
That sounds good. And then finally, just working with town staff to update the website to include environmental programs and education. I think that's another thing that we haven't always been great at, so I'm happy leaving that in as a standing item, just as a reminder. So I know we're just about 7. Are there additional thoughts kind of on the work plan as a whole, or does this look good?
I think
Looks very ambitious.
overall it looks good. I mean, but is there a way we could have like each board member go down and circle their top 5 things they want us to focus on and collect that back, and then we can build our goals to match their goals to some degree? Is there a way to kind of close that loop? So I don't want to say like we're guessing what they want us to do, but it to know where to focus our efforts for 2021.
Jim, I think that's a fantastic idea. I personally would love to do that in the context of the town adopting our sustainability goals, because then we can tie the work plan into these overarching goals. So to your point, then they can circle their top 5 to say, yeah, these are the 5 most important things that we'd like to see accomplished in 2021.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think for this year, for the 2021 work plan, we basically are at our deadline, so we need to finalize something tonight. But for next year in particular, especially after we have the board hopefully adopt some sustainability goals, I would love to get the town board a little more directly involved to make sure that we're aligned with their priorities. I know in the past it's been sort of a little bit challenging when we haven't always known what the board's priorities were or they change over time. And so I think getting more direct collaboration there and making sure we're all on the same page would be really, really helpful.
Well, Essie, I mean, they can still adopt the plan as is, but can't we still ask them to, give them a hard copy of this and just go out and circle what you like? They only have to put their name on the piece of paper.
Yeah,
yeah.
And sorry, I'd totally be in favor of that. I just we still need to submit the work plan, but I'd be totally in favor of getting additional feedback, sooner rather than later too. So sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
I think that will happen. Maybe not in the exact format that you guys are asking right now, but the process was being tinkered with a little bit last year, but I think we all got on the same page with how the work plans for the various committees would be approved. And what I anticipate is going to happen this upcoming year, and Karen, correct me if you know something I don't, but if we follow last year's model, what I believe will probably happen is we're going to have at one of our meetings, either late January or early February, a time where each committee gets a brief time slot to come and present their work plan to us, and we can ask questions and have that open dialogue with you all. And prior to that, we will receive your work plan, and that night is when I would assume we would probably vote and adopt your work plans. So that would probably be the best time to have that one-on-one conversation. And then the other thing that I just wanted to note, I couldn't hear who it was. Mike, maybe it was you, said this looks really ambitious. Maybe I couldn't hear who said it, but Stephen, yeah. So it is better to be ambitious with these work plans than not. If you don't accomplish something that's on the work plan, it's not necessarily the end of the world. But if you want to do something that is not on your work plan, you then have to come back to the board and it becomes a bigger process. You need to get it added to your work plan, and it can become a barrier to actually accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. So it's better to throw anything and everything that you really want to get done in here. And if you don't get it all done, so be it.
Okay, good.
Right, and just to touch just briefly on the process, Ken is exactly right. Like last year, what happened is, and that's why we need to finalize it this month, and then we submit it to the town manager, who then gets all of the plans onto the town board. And then there is a board meeting late January. Last year, I believe it was in February, where all of the different committees come and present the board or the work plan to the town board. And there's that dialogue that happens. And then the work plans are actually, approved, edited during that process. So there could be something on here that the town board may decide that they want to change. So that will be when that happens.
And also I can do a better job as well in that presentation, assuming I'm there. Other people are, of course, welcome to join as well, but of pushing the board to provide direct feedback on sort of their views of what the top priority should be in that meeting. that's something I haven't pushed for as hard in previous years. So I'd be happy to do that to try and get that feedback.
And I will say that you're more likely to get better feedback from the board if you probably tell us what your top 5 goals are and what you want to accomplish, and then ask us if we have any deviations to that. Trying to get something from all of us is going to become difficult, and probably just get off track, knowing how the boards typically go. Maybe this next iteration will be better than the last board, but you're more likely to get a better result if you take that approach.
So Ken, with that feedback, I really appreciate that. Is that something that we need to figure out tonight, or is that something that we need to figure out in January prior to the work plan going to the board?
I would just say have that discussion and an idea of what your top 5 are going into that board meeting where you'll have that open discussion, and there's usually so much on the work plans that it's not like we're going to ask you to go line by line and tell us everything that you're going to do. It would actually be best to just highlight those top 5 and say, this is what we're really trying to accomplish. And then if you open up to the board, that would give us the opportunity to say, yeah, I appreciate that, but there's this other thing I'd really rather you focus on, and then we can have that back and forth dialogue.
Okay.
Sounds good. Cool. Well, with that, are we at a place where we feel like we could go ahead and officially finalize the work plan for now, and then we'll continue the dialogue early in the next year?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
So yep, you'll need a motion and a first and a second.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people had a chance for final feedback if they wanted to. So yeah, I'll introduce a motion to accept the current work plan and finalize that and send it to the board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think it passed. So funny with the Zoom platform not be able to see how people are voting. All right. Thanks, everyone. And Karen, I'll go ahead and just get rid of the formatting and send that to you after the meeting. So I guess the final item, we don't need to spend much time on it right now because we've already gone through this and it's been a lot. But I did put together basically a vision statement for sustainability that the town we could make a recommendation that the town kind of adopt. I've sent it around to everyone, so please just take a look at it. I'll put it as agenda item for the next January meeting, but I'd love to get your thoughts or anything that's missing. But the goal of this is basically to try to create sort of a meta statement of support for sustainability that's separate from the clear metric and time-driven goals that we're also proposing. But this is sort of an indefinite sort of statement of support for sustainability and the types of broad goals that the town wants to realize through sustainability. So if everyone could take a look at that and let me know if this seems good, or if you want to make any tweaks. Hopefully my thinking was that maybe this is something I could present alongside the specific goals in the board meeting next month and get feedback before we officially recommend it. So any questions or concerns or thoughts on this before we wrap up?
See, this is Mike. Are we taking a more traditional approach to a vision statement, or is this more of a manifesto statement? Because the reason why I'm asking, because in my mind, a vision statement is something that is very short and succinct, maybe a sentence, where this really seems like something that's maybe a little bit broader than that. And that's just kind of my first reaction to seeing this. I think the essence of a short vision statement is within all of this language, and I'd be happy to try to craft a short, concise vision statement. But again, I'm just trying to understand what we're trying to achieve with this document or with this statement.
Sure. In my mind, it could be a little bit more of a manifesto than just a concise vision statement. And the reason for that is because sustainability is very broad. And so I think having some specifics on the exact types of benefits that we want as a town to see through sustainability through different aspects would be valuable, and calling that out as opposed to just having more of a sort of high
North
level,
Star.
like we support sustainability type of thing, which is what the town has done in the past. And so with that in mind, I think it's probably worth having a little bit more specificity and verbiage there, as opposed to just having a very short kind of traditional vision statement of like, we support X. So that's sort of how I was thinking about it, but
Okay.
I'd certainly be open to additional thoughts or suggestions or criticisms.
Yeah, this gets into that vision statement versus mission statement kind of weirdness, right?
Well, yeah, in my mind, a vision statement is your North Star. Something that we can rally the community and the town board behind, that's going to get them to say, yeah, we buy into this, we love this. And then the details are the work plan and the mission of how we achieve the vision.
Yeah, and I was sort of thinking that this would be like similar, even if not a traditional vision statement in terms of the length, but sort of something similar where it's like, this is where we want to go and why. And then that would support iterative sort of shorter term goals, like what we're putting together with regards to our sustainability goals that are all by 2025. Like once we get to 2025, hopefully we'll have achieved those goals and can come up with the next iterative step that gets us towards this eventual vision. So that's sort of the hope, is just putting a broader framework around the town's stance on sustainability, kind of making that a little bit firmer. And, you know, I guess what I'd like to see, particularly given the challenges with climate change and some of the other things that we're going to be seeing over the coming years, is that Superior takes a really strong stance in terms of wanting to support sustainability, because it's going to require a lot of resources and effort from a lot of different folks. And so coming up with a clear, strong statement sooner rather than later, I think would be really helpful in terms of kind of creating a precedent for strong action going forward.
Okay.
And for those of you who can see the chat box, I pasted in an example from our Open Space Advisory Committee. OSAC did this about 6 years ago. That was still when I was on that committee, and we were kind of having a identification problem as who we were and what we should be doing, and we spent several meetings going over that, and we ended up landing on a very concise mission statement like what Mike was talking about, and then broke it further into 4 sub goals to help drive our work plan creation. So you guys are by no means bound to that, but there's actually that's just an example of how that committee took on a very similar challenge to what you guys are talking about right now. The other thing that we did during that process was, this was based off feedback that we received from the board at that time, was make sure you review the document that established ACES and make sure that there's no contradictions between what you pull together and your establishing document. So Karen, if you could send that for the next meeting, that way the group can read that and make sure that everything is still in alignment with the establishing resolution. I think that'd probably be helpful for the conversation.
Everyone should have access to the committee Dropbox, and all of our establishing resolutions and all of those files are in that Dropbox, but I'm more than willing to email it as well.
Karen, could you at least email the link back out for Dropbox?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that. So yeah, if you could.
Yep. Yeah, I just, when Mike was asking about a place for all of our files, I did resend it to everyone, all the new members. But I can definitely resend it.
Okay.
Essie, I just want to say a huge thank you for taking the time, effort, and energy to craft the proposed Superior Vision Statement. I know it takes a lot of work, a lot of thought, a lot of energy to put this together. So I just want to say thank you for putting this out there for us to respond to.
Cool, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Essie.
That's great.
Awesome. I'll look forward to discussing further, and happy to cut it down as needed or make additional changes. But yeah, thanks everyone. So yeah, and broadly, I know we're at the end of the meeting, so thank you guys all for joining. I know December is typically a rough time for advisory committees. People have other things to be doing, so I appreciate you all taking the time to attend, and wish you happy holidays and look forward to seeing everyone again in the new year.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks so much, everybody. Happy the end of 2020, and may 2021 be a COVID-free year.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
All right. See you guys.
Yeah.
All right,
Everybody.
thanks, everybody.
Have a good
So
night.
much. Have
Bye-bye.
a good evening.